while I was fixing a cracked tile in the kitchen at night, after a full day spent assembling furniture in her sister's apartment. I heard my wife say to her over the speakerphone, "He thinks if he fixes things, he's a man. To me, he's just a free handyman." The sister laughed. "At least you don't have to leave a tip." Haha. I sat in dust and cement, with chapped hands, but I finished the job. For days later, she regretted every word. Some background first. My name's Carter, I'm 38, and I've been married to Julia, 34, for a little over 7 years now. No kids, just the two of us and a mortgage on a modest starter home in a developing neighborhood, which is a polite way of saying it was the only place remotely affordable when we bought it. I've always been a hands-on guy. My dad taught me from a young age how to fix just about anything: plumbing, electrical, carpentry, you name it. Those skills have saved us thousands over the years. And honestly, I take a lot of pride in that. There's something deeply satisfying about solving problems with your own two hands. Leaky faucet? Fixed. Broken deck? Rebuilt. Fridge making weird noises? Diagnosed and repaired before the food could spoil. Not bragging, just saying it always felt good to be the guy who handled things. Fast forward to last Saturday. Julia's sister, Megan, 32, had just moved into some overpriced apartment across town. Friday night, Megan called Julia practically in tears because her flat-pack furniture had been delivered and she couldn't figure out how to put any of it together. Before I could even finish my dinner, Julia volunteered me to go help without even checking if I had plans. So there I was, 8 a.m. sharp on Saturday, knee-deep in assembly hell. 2 massive bookshelves, a TV stand, a dining table with 6 chairs, and the boss level, a bed frame with built-in storage drawers. If you've ever battled those instruction manuals with the cartoon stick figure and a single mysterious hex key, you know the pain. It was hours of missing screws, poorly translated instructions, and awkward angles that left my knees screaming. Throughout the day, I noticed these little glances and giggles between Julia and Megan. I couldn't catch exactly what they were whispering about, but I figured they were just joking around like sisters do. I didn't pay it much mind at the time. I was too focused on getting everything done. By the time I dragged myself home around 7 p.m., I was wrecked. My back ached like I'd been hit by a truck, my fingers were raw from turning stubborn screws, and I just wanted a shower and a bed. Maybe 10 minutes of peace before Monday came rolling in. I didn't even make it to the couch. Julia pointed to a loose floor tile by the kitchen sink and said, "Hey, can you fix that before someone trips?" I should have said no. I should have told her to hire someone. But being the idiot who can't stand to leave a problem half-solved, I found myself on my hands and knees at midnight, scraping out cracked grout while Julia lounged on the couch watching some trashy reality show. The job was way worse than it looked at first glance. The tile was completely detached, water had seeped underneath, and the subfloor felt soft, a ticking time bomb for bigger issues if left untreated. It wasn't a quick patch job. It was one of those rip it all out, dry it properly, and rebuild kind of repairs. Still, I pushed through even as my hands cracked open from a full day's worth of manual labor. That's when I heard it. Julia's phone rang and she answered it on speaker. Why do people do that? It was Megan. They chatted about some office drama first, casual stuff. Then Megan asked how the furniture was holding up. Julia laughed and said, "Oh, he's still fixing the kitchen tile. He thinks fixing things makes him a man. He's basically our unpaid maintenance guy." I froze mid-scrape. Megan laughed, a loud, mean-spirited cackle, and added, "At least you don't have to tip him, lol." They both laughed. Not the soft kind of laugh where you know they're teasing but they love you anyway. No. This was full-on mean girl, laugh at you, not with you kind of laughter. I sat there, kneeling on the cold floor, covered in grout dust, hands literally bleeding, body screaming in exhaustion after spending 11 hours fixing her sister's new apartment, and they were laughing at me like I was some joke. For a moment, I genuinely thought about storming into the living room, throwing the wet towel at the wall, and letting it all out in a dramatic scene worthy of reality TV. But something in me just went cold. Instead, I finished the damn tile. Meticulously. Better than before. Stronger. Perfect. When I finally stood up, brushed off the dust, and wiped my bleeding knuckles, something inside me felt different. Not broken in the explosive sense, broken like an old bridge finally collapsing after years of unnoticed damage. I cleaned up in silence. Memories flashed through my head, Julia introducing me to her coworkers without mentioning a single thing about my projects or skills. Julia calling her dad for advice on simple repairs even though he once shocked himself trying to change a light bulb. Julia bragging about our renovated bathroom to her friends without ever mentioning that I had gutted and rebuilt it from scratch, saving us thousands. It wasn't just about tonight. It was years of being treated like background noise. Like a free service, not a partner. I crawled into bed around 2 a.m. Julia was either asleep or pretending to be. I stared up at the ceiling fan, the same one I'd installed by myself last summer to save us a few $100, and realized something. It wasn't just the tile that had come loose. It was everything holding this marriage together. The next morning, I barely said a word. Julia didn't notice. She went about her Sunday scrolling her phone, talking about brunch plans with Megan like nothing had changed. But something had. In me. All day, I took mental inventory of every single thing I had built, repaired, or maintained around this house. The kitchen backsplash that had taken 3 weekends. The deck I tore apart and rebuilt after finding rot. The bathroom I gutted after discovering mold. The custom shelving in Julia's office that her colleagues always complimented during Zoom meetings. By Monday morning, while Julia hummed in the bathroom, I stood in our tiny laundry room and made a silent decision. No more. Not an explosive fight. Not a dramatic speech. Something colder. More methodical. If all I was to her was a free maintenance man, then maybe it was time I went on strike. And so, it began. The funny thing about making a life-altering decision is that, at first, nothing on the outside changes. Julia woke up that Monday humming some pop song in the shower. She made coffee, scrolled through her phone, laughed at something Megan sent her. To her, it was just another Monday. Business as usual. But inside me, something had shifted. Quietly, irrevocably. I went to work like normal, sat through the usual Monday meetings, nodded in the right places. But during lunch, while eating my sad little turkey sandwich at a corner table, I opened my banking app. In 15 minutes, I had a new account at a different bank entirely. Just like that. I set up a partial direct deposit from my paycheck, enough to cover my share of the mortgage, and utilities would stay in the old account, but the rest? The rest was going somewhere safe. Somewhere mine. It wasn't about revenge. It was about control. I had spent 7 years fixing everything around me, leaky pipes, cracked drywall, broken doors, but never once had I addressed the real rot, how little my work, my presence, seemed to matter. That night, back at home, Julia mentioned the dishwasher again. It had been making a weird grinding noise for weeks. Normally, I would have dropped everything to check it, maybe even run out for parts. Instead, I glanced up from my phone and said, "Huh. Weird," and went back to scrolling. She stared at me like I'd grown another head. "You're not going to look at it?" I shrugged. "Long day. Maybe tomorrow." She blinked. I could practically see the gears turning in her head. The Carter she knew, the one who couldn't leave anything broken, would have been halfway under the sink by now, wrench in hand. Instead, I finished my beer, patted her on the shoulder, and went to bed early. Over the next few days, I perfected the art of benign neglect. The cabinet door that had been hanging a little crooked stayed crooked. The slow drip from the upstairs bathroom sink dripped. The weird clunking noise from the dryer grew louder with every load. Every time Julia pointed something out, I smiled vaguely and muttered something noncommittal. "Yeah, I'll get to it." I never did. It was almost laughable how quickly things started unraveling without my invisible hand keeping everything running smoothly. By day 4, the dishwasher gave up the ghost entirely. I came home to find Julia mopping water off the kitchen floor with every towel we owned. She looked up, hair frizzing at the temples, eyes wild. "The dishwasher's broken. There's water everywhere." I nodded sympathetically like she was telling me the weather forecast. "Yikes," I said. "Maybe you should call a maintenance guy." You could have heard a pin drop. For a second, she just stared at me, mouth open. Then she blinked, setting her jaw like she thought maybe I was joking. When it became clear I wasn't, she grabbed her phone and stomped off to call someone. Watching her navigate the reality of household emergencies without her personal unpaid handyman was like watching a fish learn to ride a bicycle. The repair guy quoted her $375 just for the service call. Plus parts. Plus labor. When she told me the number later that night, half expecting me to crack and offer to fix it myself, I just whistled low and said, "Man, that's rough." She didn't know what to say. Neither did I. Because the truth is, it wasn't really about the dishwasher. It wasn't about the money. It was about the look on her face when she realized that the free labor well had run dry. The next day at lunch, I started a new note on my phone. Repairs Julia paid for. I listed every service call, every repair bill, every hour a stranger spent fixing things I used to handle for free. It wasn't petty. It was documentation. Proof of value. Around day 7, Julia finally asked the question she should have asked a long time ago. We were sitting on opposite sides of the couch, the TV droning on in the background. She muted it and turned to me. "What's going on with you lately?" she asked. "You've been different." I paused, pretending to think about it, then shrugged. "Just tired, I guess." It was the truth. 7 years of carrying the weight of 2 people tends to wear a man out. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, to tell me I was imagining things. But something, maybe the puddle from the broken dishwasher, maybe the $700 repair bill, made her stop. Instead, she just nodded slowly and unmuted the TV. Meanwhile, things around the house kept falling apart. The faucet in the guest bathroom sprang a leak. The Wi-Fi started acting up. The garage door opener, the one I'd been warning her was on its last legs, finally gave up the ghost. And every time something broke, Julia looked at me with a mixture of expectation and dread. And every time I shrugged. "Maybe call someone." She did. And the bills kept piling up. By the end of the second week, Julia had spent close to $2,000 on repairs alone. I didn't gloat. I didn't say, "I told you so." I just quietly kept track of every bill, every contractor, every maintenance visit. At work, my buddy Nate, who'd been trying to recruit me for his company for months, finally cornered me at lunch. "You still thinking about switching jobs?" he asked. I smiled for the first time all day. "Yeah, I'm thinking about it real hard." Nate offered me longer hours but more flexibility, and most importantly, more time away from home. Time to breathe. Time to rebuild myself without constantly patching everything, including my own resentment, back together. By day 14, I could feel something shifting between Julia and me. The easy, lazy comfort was gone, replaced by a wary tension, like she wasn't sure which version of me would walk through the door each night. And honestly, I didn't know either. All I knew was that I wasn't going back to being the invisible handyman who just soaked up every slight and fixed every broken thing without thanks. I was done patching over rot. Done making things perfect for someone who only noticed when something wasn't working. The silence between us grew heavier with every drip from the bathroom sink, every rattle of the broken garage door, every broken thing left unfixed. And deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the house. This was about whether Julia ever really saw me at all. Things didn't explode between Julia and me. They just eroded, quietly, like water under a foundation that finally starts to give way. About 10 days into my silent strike, the washing machine joined the rebellion. It started making this awful grinding noise during the spin cycle, like metal chewing on metal. You could hear it from the street. Julia looked at me from across the hall, eyebrows raised, waiting for the old version of me to jump into action. I didn't. I slipped in my earbuds and said, "That doesn't sound good." Then I went out for a walk. 2 days later, I came home to find a service van in the driveway. Julia met me at the door, holding a folded estimate with a death grip. $800, she said. "Transmission's gone." I gave a low whistle and nodded. "Tough break." She stared at me like I'd just kicked the dog. That weekend was her parents' anniversary dinner. The whole family came, including Megan, who acted like everything between us was sunshine and daisies. Halfway through the meal, she turned to me with that sweet condescending tone of hers and asked, "So, Carter, what little projects are you working on at the house?" I looked her dead in the eyes and replied, "Nothing lately. I'm on strike." Polite chuckles around the table. Julia gave me a sharp glance but tried to play it off. "Oh, he's just being dramatic," she told her mom. "But he'll take a look at your garbage disposal after dinner." I put down my fork, turned to her, and said clearly, "I don't do free maintenance work anymore." The silence was immediate. Julia's father blinked. Megan froze. Julia turned red. Her mom cleared her throat and reached for the wine. No one said anything else until dessert. The drive home was quiet until Julia snapped, "What the hell was that? You humiliated me in front of my entire family." I kept my eyes on the road. Better they hear it now than find out when we sell the house. She went silent. The rest of the drive passed in thick, boiling tension. That night, the air conditioning died. Of course it did. It was 94 degrees and rising, and our thermostat went dark around 2 a.m. The whole house turned into a sauna. Julia stood barefoot in the hallway, hair sticking to her face, looking at me with panic in her eyes. "Carter, please? Just look at it. It's probably something simple." I didn't say a word. I grabbed my duffel, tossed in a change of clothes and my laptop, and headed for the door. "I'll be staying at Nate's for a few nights. Try calling someone." She didn't even try to stop me. At Nate's, the AC worked. The fridge had beer. The couch didn't judge me. And for the first time in a long time, I slept through the night without waking up grinding my teeth. Nate and I stayed up late talking. He'd been nudging me for months to take a job at his company, something with longer hours but more freedom. Better pay wasn't the draw. It was the distance. A chance to breathe. You're already halfway out, he said. Might as well keep walking. I didn't disagree. Back at the house, the flood continued. Julia texted the next morning. AC guy quoted $1,400. I'm dying. I waited a few hours before replying. Stay hydrated. Then came the garage door. The opener jammed halfway. The door wouldn't open or close. She called me from the driveway, furious. What am I supposed to do? I sent her a link to a garage door repair company. They had 4.7 stars. I even said good reviews. She hung up. That night, I stopped by to grab my tools, the expensive ones, the ones I inherited from my dad. Julia was in the kitchen, surrounded by paperwork and bills. She looked up at me and I could see the stress carved into her face. I've spent over $3,000 in 3 weeks, she said softly. Do you know how insane that is? I didn't respond. She looked down at the pile of receipts, then back at me. What's happening to us? I set the bag down and sat across from her. I took the job with Nate, I said calmly. I start next week. I'll be home less. But I'll be happier. Her eyes widened. This is about the dishwasher? The AC? I shook my head. No. This is about the past 7 years. Of fixing everything. Of making our home livable. And you laughing about it behind my back. Calling me your handyman. Her breath caught in her throat. I didn't mean that, she whispered. I was just trying to sound, I don't know, clever. Megan was I heard you, I said, not angry, just firm. I was there. I was bleeding on my knees fixing a tile. And you laughed at me. She looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Then she asked the question I'd been waiting for. What do you think all of it's worth? The work you've done. Really? I pulled out my phone. Opened the spreadsheet. Turned the screen to her. Line by line. Every project. Every repair. Every upgrade. Labor cost estimates next to each item. At the bottom? $37,462. She stared. Mouth slightly open. You tracked all of this? I nodded. Someone had to. She didn't speak. For the first time in years, she didn't have anything to say. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't expect what happened next. After I showed Julia the spreadsheet, all $37,462 of unpaid labor spread out in black and white, I expected shock. Maybe denial. Possibly anger. Instead, she laughed. Not out of humor. It was the kind of laugh that slips out when someone realizes they've been blind to something that's been right in front of them for years. She picked up my phone, scrolled through the rows in silence, and asked, You were really tracking every faucet, every drawer, every ceiling fan? I looked her in the eye. I didn't start out that way. But after that night, after what you said to Megan, I needed to. Not to punish you. To prove to myself I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't imagining how much I was doing alone. Julia put the phone down and leaned back in her chair, eyes distant. Then she said something I never expected. You're right. I didn't see it. I got used to things just being fixed. And I stopped seeing you in the fixing. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just sat there in the quiet and owned it. And maybe, in that moment, I started breathing again. I told her I wasn't making any decisions yet. Not about the marriage, not about the house, but that I needed space. Time to figure out who I was without being the guy who just patched things up until they broke again. That night, I moved fully into Nate's spare room. The next day, Julia did something I didn't expect. She texted Megan. Not just to talk, to confront her. A few hours later, I got a screenshot of the conversation. Julia had told Megan everything. How what they said hurt me. How it opened her eyes. How she was ashamed. Megan, predictably, brushed it off. Said it was just a joke. That Julia was overreacting. Julia didn't let it go. She sent the screenshots of their conversation and a summary of what had really happened to their entire family group chat. Parents, cousins, everyone. It exploded. Julia's mom called me personally to apologize. Her dad, who once nearly burned off his eyebrows changing a fuse, was furious that Megan had mocked me after I'd spent hours fixing her place. Megan tried to defend herself, but no one was having it. 3 days later, Megan showed up at Nate's front door. She was crying, holding a bag of muffins like they were a peace offering. "Can we talk?" she asked. Against my better judgment, I said yes. The conversation was awkward. Megan admitted her parents had pulled out of helping her with the down payment on her new car. "You know what my dad said?" she sniffed. "He told me maybe I should learn how to fix something for once in my life." I raised an eyebrow. Sounds like good advice. And Tyler ghosted me. Tyler, the guy I was seeing, works in construction. He saw the texts, said I don't respect people who work with their hands, and blocked me. I didn't laugh. I didn't feel anything at all. I accepted her apology, but only because I didn't need her guilt. I'd already moved past needing anything from Megan. Meanwhile, something strange started happening with Julia. She didn't try to guilt me or beg me to come home. Instead, she started texting me updates, not about us but about the house. Tried to fix the garbage disposal. Used a YouTube video. Got halfway there. Spoons still stuck. Replaced a shower head. Flooded the bathroom. Twice. Learning curve. Tried to clear the drain. Half a bottle of cleaner later, still clogged. Hair monster undefeated. They made me laugh against my will. By the end of the second week, she sent me a spreadsheet of her own. She'd gone through our photo library, found pictures of every project I'd ever done, and matched them to market rates from local contractors. Her total? $43,217. Higher than mine. At the bottom, she'd written, "I can't repay you, but I can start acknowledging what it was worth." Attached was a receipt. She'd signed up for a local workshop on basic home maintenance. 6 evenings, tools provided. The last message read, "I don't want to go back to the way things were. I want to be someone who helps carry the weight." 2 days later, I came home to talk. The house looked different. She'd rearranged the living room furniture to center the built-in shelves I'd made years ago, the ones she used to block with plants. She'd framed a before and after of the bathroom renovation I did myself, hung it in the hallway like art. We sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where I once bled into grout, and talked. Not about blame, not about guilt. About truth. She admitted she'd stopped seeing me as a partner. That pointing at problems and watching them disappear had become a habit. That it took losing me or almost losing me to see how far we drifted. I admitted I should have spoken up sooner. That for too long, I tied my value to how many things I could fix. That I thought if I stopped being useful, I wouldn't be wanted. We made some agreements. She'd stop making jokes about her handyman. I'd teach her basic repair skills so she'd understand what went into it. For big projects, we'd either split the labor or split the cost of hiring help. I'd keep the job with Nate. We'd try couples counseling. And we'd start again, not pretend nothing happened, but build something better. Not perfect, but real. A few days later, the kitchen sink clogged. She looked at me and said, "Want to fix it together?" We did. It was gross. She gagged once. But she didn't quit. And when the pipe finally cleared, she high-fived me with a glove-covered hand and grinned like a kid. Then, yesterday, I came home and found her in the guest room, sweating, swearing softly, standing under a newly installed ceiling fan, the pull chains uneven, the blades wobbling slightly, but it worked. She looked so damn proud. YouTube tutorial still playing on her phone. I didn't fix it. It was perfect in its imperfection. Some things don't need repairing. They need rebuilding together.